the road. Ain't no trust tonight. Look at me, this is my life. Follow me, this is showtime.
What's up, guys and girls? Welcome to the fastest rising podcast in all of professional wrestling. And today, we got a huge episode. First, I'm going to bring in my co-host like usual. First, I'm going to bring in my man, Antwan. What is up?
What's up, everybody? What's going on?
What
Proud
is
to
up?
be on the next episode today. Welcome to the Tuck Your Chin podcast.
Yes, sir. And the plug, as usual, my man, Steepstone.
What's up, guys? You're in for another banging episode. You know what to do. Follow us on our socials, and let's get ready to tuck your chin.
Yes. And our guest today, comedian, wrestling journalist, creator of the website Scoops, and the promoter of an event that was ahead of its time, Break the Barrier, Al ISAACS. And the other guest...
Gentlemen, how are you?
Amazing, dude. Amazing. How about yourself? And...
Very, very well, thanks. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And the other guest, the person responsible for getting me into this crazy world of professional wrestling, my father.
Hey, what's up? Nice. I really liked the welcome. That was awesome. I have really good credits, Al. You see that?
So let's get right into some questions. So I'll start. So for both of you, Father and Al, when did you start watching wrestling? Whoever wants to take it, go for it.
Go for it, Al.
I'm cutting in and out here, so Paulie, why don't you take that first?
All right. You got it. Well, wrestling used to be on Channel 9, which was Saturday mornings. And it was just the WWF, and you'd get up, do what you got to do, watch some cartoons, and right after that, you'd flip to Channel 9, and it'd be these crazy guys wrestling, and Vince McMahon was the announcer, was one of the color commentators, and I just got into watching some silly wrestling on Saturday mornings. That was it. That was the only time you got to watch it, and that's what I would do every Saturday.
Okay. Al.
Sounds like he has a bad connection.
I remember my dad took me when I was 12 years old, back in '82, my first live match, and it was headlined by Tony Atlas versus Don Morocco in a steel on. I was absolutely hooked to this thing. So yeah. So between that, I was going up, watching the Saturday morning shows. And also, my grandfather was a boxer.
Wow.
And he used to tell me stories about how sometimes wrestlers would work out in the same gym.
Well, you faded in and out.
And he had some really... That was always in the back of my mind. I'm fading in and out?
Yeah, a little bit. Do you guys hear that, or is it me?
I'm hearing that too.
Yeah. The audio in my headset is cutting in and out when you guys are speaking too.
Ooh. That is not good.
For not doing video, why don't I see if I can reconnect on my cell phone? How about that?
Yeah, go for it. Okay, so when did you start watching wrestling?
Paulie, you go first.
Oh, all right. Well, I started watching wrestling when it was on Saturday mornings on Channel 9. That was the only wrestling that was on TV. It was like 1 hour a week, and it was on Saturday mornings. I don't know. I think it was like at either 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was, the WWF. It was the big cartoony guys wrestling. And what they used to do, there was always the superstar. And against the Jobber, who was just a no name. And
Squash match.
Oh yeah, every week was that. Any week, the unpredictable Johnny Rods could become champion of the world. And it was great. You know, Vince McMahon was the color commentator, and who the heck, no one knew that he owned this thing. At least I didn't. I mean, I was like 10 or 11.
Right, President Jack Tunney, he was the guy.
Yes, there was a president of the WWE who made all the WWF, who made all the rules, and yeah, so that's how I started. I saw one live match before they became bigger, and they were at the Nassau Coliseum and everything. It was I went with some older friends from high school, Jimmy Pagliocca, Rich Icavetta, and they got tickets to Madison Square Garden, and Jesus, man, got on a train for the first time from Long Island, went to Madison Square Garden, and the match that I remember was Jimmy Superfly Snuka against Don Morocco in a cage match. And that was the match that he actually jumped off the top of the cage, and that was like the greatest moment ever, when he jumped off the top of the cage and he Superfly right onto Morocco. It was crazy. Okay. But that's how I got into wrestling. Just that stuff. Just Saturday mornings, and it led from that.
Al?
See, now, for me, it was the same thing for me. I had the Saturday morning thing with WWF, but my dad, I think he was more of an NWA guy before it was WCW, because I just remember him having TBS on all the time, right around dinner time. You know, with Gordon Soley talking about the Omni next week. Dusty Rhodes, and that was like in the background. That was like the ambient noise in the background of my childhood. And then he took me in '82 to Nassau Coliseum. So my main event and your main event had one guy in common. I saw Tony Atlas versus Don Morocco in a steel cage, 12 years old, and I was hooked. That was it for me, man. So yeah, every Saturday morning it was WWF Superstars. And, you know, and it went from there.
Okay. Steve, what do you got?
All right, so this question is for both our guests. Who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Dad,
it's got it. I mean, it's not Morocco, right? I don't know. The Georgia Championship, which was week, was Buzz Sawyer.
Oh,
he was my favorite. Just he was crazy. He just was like nuts. He would want to just he'd bark at like a dog. He would scare the hell out of you. He would intimidate the host, Gordon Soley. He'd always have to have a manager or someone holding him back. I was so into Buzz Sawyer. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Did you go with me to WrestleMania 2?
Yes, WrestleMania 2. We saw live.
So you'll remember, I almost got my ass kicked for wearing a Roddy Piper T-shirt.
Yes, liking the bad guys was not good.
Yeah, that was frowned upon back in the day. But I was a Piper fan. A guy was so charismatic. I mean, I was a fan of a lot of different guys. You know, I wouldn't say I was like a real Hogan mark back then, but Piper for me, man, you know, you talk about a genuine heel that people just hated. He was probably my guy growing up. He was the one that put my butt in the seat every week.
Okay. Antwan, what do you got?
All right. This is a question for both of you. How has wrestling changed now in comparison to how you guys watched it from back in the day?
Oh, man, you guys got about 7 hours? I'll let you go first, Paul.
I mean, geez, basically pay-per-views started, I mean, there was no such thing as a pay-per-view. The first pay-per-view was WrestleMania 1, if I'm right. So now, I mean, there's a pay-per-view every month, it seems, obviously. It's become so mainstream. And like I said, with the WWF, it was every week you'd watch, the heel or the face come out, and he'd just crush his opponent. It would just be a squash, and that was the whole thing. They'd interview him, squash match, done. Now it's like soap opera. It's every week you're following a storyline, and back then there really wasn't a storyline. It was just the good guy is gonna beat the bad guy. That's pretty much what it was. And nowadays, I mean, you got NXT, AEW, WWE. I mean, it's just there's just so much to go through now. And even 10 years ago, it was so much different than 30 years ago. It's just more mainstream, and it's definitely much more popular now than it ever was.
Mm. All right, I'm gonna put on. All right, here we go. I'm actually gonna reverse a speech I gave last night to my comedy class, because it relates to both. I was talking to my comedy class last night about when you're doing a scene in improv comedy, the most important thing is for me to care about you. If I care about your character and what's about to happen, I don't have to have a laugh every 30 seconds. What's important to me is what happens to your character, and by the end, do you win, do you lose, do you get fired, do you not get fired, do you get married, does she split up with you, all these different things, right? If I don't care, you'd better be funny every second. With wrestling, it's kind of the same thing in my head, where back in the day, I cared about the babyface. And the heel, as predictable as, let's take the Hogan matches, for instance. As predictable as Hogan's matches would be, you were emotionally invested. And they didn't have to do as many high spots because all you cared about was who won in the end. Today, it's flipped. Today, like back in the day, if a heel did a crazy move, you would want to kill that heel. You'd be screaming from the seats. You would be losing your mind, not going, "This is awesome." Okay? So you had that emotional investment back then. The guys, I'm not going to say they didn't have to work as hard, but they didn't have to almost kill themselves to keep you entertained. You were emotionally invested with how it turned out. Today, it's literally on a move by move by move basis where the audience is going, "Wow, that was amazing. Now what?" And so for me, that's the kind of the biggest difference, and the funny thing was, and this happened in the back, in the late 80s when McMahon came out and said, "This is sports entertainment. This isn't a real sport." It was funny because you would think that everyone would kind of go, "Oh, okay, it's make-believe, we're all on the same page, let's go out there." After McMahon did that, for whatever reason, it became more important than ever to the boys in the back, winning and losing the matches. It makes no sense whatsoever. So now that everyone knows it's predetermined, these guys are going out there and risking their lives more than they did when everyone thought it was real. So that's my Cliff Notes version in a nutshell. That's where I'm coming from with wrestling today. It's a different animal that wears the same boots, but I take nothing away from anyone who doesn't. But the other thing I will say, and again, I'll put my preacher robes back on. The other thing I will say is that fans, the biggest thing that changed was the internet.
Yeah.
There was no such thing with me and Paul growing up. There was no internet. Fans never got a say in booking. Fans never got a say in who was being pushed, right? But, all the wrestlers would read all the dirt sheets. They were kind of up on the general consensus, but they didn't have a day-to-day get done with their match, go in the back, and go online and see what people thought. There wasn't that instant, feedback from fans. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because the people online can be very, very loud and very, very vocal and seem like a much bigger majority than they actually are. So I think that in the last 10 to 15 years, you've seen some, I won't say bad decisions, but some questionable decisions made and booking decisions made based on, the internet wrestling, fans that maybe, 20 years earlier, they would have just let the storyline play out and see where it goes. Yeah, I know you guys are all younger. Did you all watch The Sopranos?
No.
No, perfect. Okay.
Thanks, Dad.
So let me say this about The Sopranos and other shows like Game of Thrones or an example too. The amazing thing about The Sopranos was that they knew what their audience wanted, and they would give it to them, but they wouldn't give it to them when they wanted it or how they wanted it. Like, there was one character that Joe Pantoliano played that he did something so horrendous in one episode that people were like, this guy's got to die. You got to whack this guy. This guy's got to get killed. Right?
And he lasted a season.
Exactly. He lasted a season. You're waiting for him to kill him. Then they introduced the fact that he's a good father and that he has a disabled daughter. And you go, oh, this guy isn't that bad. And then
kill him. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Wrestling, it's almost like someone could come up with a really good storyline, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time to play out. And I think because of the internet, they have the patience to let it play out. They're so afraid of losing ratings or losing viewers or someone not being happy that they rush things and change things when it really might have been satisfying to see how things played out over the month or two, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And there was something else. It was interesting that I know Al knows, and you guys probably heard of it maybe or didn't. But talking about how before it became sports entertainment, everyone thought this was real, and there were the people who said, wrestling's fake, and you can never really prove it. You don't know for sure. But there was a storyline where the Iron Sheik from Iran, who hated America, could not stand any of it. We were pieces of garbage. And he would.
The Iron Sheik used to call me Jew Jabroni Internet Writer.
There you go. Yeah. He got a little crazy towards the end of his career, the Iron Sheik. But so he was wrestling Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Jim Duggan was I don't know what he was doing at the time, but he was like the USA. Everyone would go nuts. And then one night on the news, professional wrestler, the Iron Sheik, and Jim Duggan were arrested for drug possession as they were driving from one show to the next. They were like, wait a second. They're driving together? No, they hate each other. How are they in the same car? That can't happen. So it was a different world,
Kayfabe was huge.
Yeah,
kayfabe was the deal.
They hit it. Yeah, they did anything in their power.
There were guys. Bill Watts, as a promoter, would tell guys, if you get into a fist fight in a bar, you'd better win or you're fired. And you could not eat. Now you got guys, tweeting back and forth what a great match they had 5 minutes after they have it. What happened with Sheik and Hacksaw. I think, Paul, I think the bottom line was that...
What's that?
We suspended disbelief in the back of our heads.
Yeah, of course.
But for that hour, for that 2 hours at wherever, you put that all aside. It's almost like watching Die Hard. In the back of my mind, I know that's a stunt man, but while I'm sitting here, I want to believe John McClane just got blown up. I don't want to know the truth. And all
Right.
I think we ask of professional wrestling is, don't insult us. You know, give me something to hang on to that I go, oh, okay, these guys legitimately hate each other. Don't show me cooperation. Don't show me, you know, like I said, don't give me a picture 5 minutes after the match of you guys hanging out. You know, let me kind of lose myself. You know, and WCW was also they were you know, they had their moments where you just go, man, it would have just taken one simple thing for me to believe a little bit more. I'll give you this example, and then I'll jump off. There was a storyline with Diamond Dallas Page where he stole money from his wife, from Kimber. She had won. And they made it that she had won, I don't know if it was $800,000 or $8 million. It was something ridiculous. And all they had to do was say that she won it in a way that I go, oh, okay. Had she won it, you know,
lottery
cards and got lucky. Had she won it in the lottery and got lucky. I completely buy that. They had the storyline that she won, let's for argument's sake, she won $8 million playing bingo. All I ask is don't treat me like an idiot. Just I will buy it. I'll go, oh, you know, even in the back of my head, I'm going, she didn't play cards, but that's the storyline. I don't feel like an idiot for believing it. When you tell me it was bingo, I feel like an idiot for believing it. And that's all I'll say.
So
the floor is yours.
Bouncing off of that, do you guys have a favorite like current wrestler or like top 5, Dad? I want to hear yours, Dad. I don't know yours, and I watch wrestling with you every week.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I mean, WWE is not really doing it for me right now. I don't know. I think it's once they went to the no fans, it's sort of like, I don't know. It just seems weird, but. I mean, Drew McIntyre is really, you know, he's up there. I like him. Gotta really like a lot of the guys on AEW now. I'm a big fan of MJF. I think he's the best heel in the business right now.
Amen.
He is definitely an old-time heel. He'll curse your kid out right in front of you and turn around and... You know, like, you don't know if he's like that or not. I mean, he may be a rich kid from Plainview. Well, like exactly. I mean, you know,
he doesn't break character. It's great.
He does not break character. I can't say I have a top 5. I think I like Bray Wyatt. What they're doing with Bray Wyatt again. WWE seems to always have a little something. I don't know. Vince McMahon is. He's still Channel 9 Vince McMahon in my mind. He just does these storylines that could just be so great, and he just either stops them or, I don't know, changes his mind midway through. And, I mean, Bray Wyatt as the Firefly Funhouse.
AJ Styles, Kevin Owens. And I'll tell you, with Wyatt and Owens, more than anything else, and this is the other thing that changed from when we were kids. When we were kids, they went out there and they were handed a microphone. And either they could do it or they couldn't do it. And if they couldn't do it, they usually had a manager who could do it for them. Right? Now, everything being scripted, everyone sounds the same. Except Bray Wyatt, Kevin Owens for a little while there. You know, if a guy can get on the microphone, you know, Jericho, you know, man, just because he was a guy back in WCW, they had nothing for, and he kind of went, all right, do you mind if I do my own thing? And he just, what a brain on that guy, you know? So letting guys be themselves, that's, you know, the one problem I have with McMahon is that McMahon filter. There's an old joke in Hollywood about, you know, two creative guys, a director and an actor, are in the middle of the desert. And, you know, they've been trying to find their way home. and they have a canteen with just a little bit of water left. And just when they thought that all hope was lost, suddenly a limousine pulls up. And they're thinking to themselves, oh my God, we're saved. And out of the limousine walks a producer, and he says, give me that canteen. And he takes the canteen, unzips his pants, and pees into the canteen. And they look at him and they go, what the hell are you doing? And he says, I'm making it better. That's Vince McMahon. And the reason I say that is you look at some of the talent that he has had coming up from NXT, or before that, coming from Ohio Valley. Guys who were like so over with fans. You know, there's like a list. And they take them and they go, let's make it better. And they completely repackage them. And it's like, what the hell did you just do? I can't understand. I was talking to someone about it the other day. You know, you had Rusev. Monster. He's over. Let's make him funny. No. You just did it with the two guys who came up from the Bullet Club.
OC, Gallows and Anderson.
Gallows and Anderson, thank you. They came in, people were going crazy for them. And then all of a sudden, I know, let's make them funny. Oh. And
you know, the only one laughing is Vince.
Doing NXT, and you get hopeful, and you're like, here it comes. They're going to bring up to the main roster. And all of a sudden, it's put through that McMahon machine, and everything just feels very, very generic. I'm sorry, what's your question again?
Just let him talk, guys. Let Al talk. You're going to church now.
Passion, man.
I know.
Oh, Dad, you were about to say... Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
No, yes, sir. You were about to say something. Yes.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. Like, you know, you watch NXT, and you're like, wow, when they put on their... you're like, Jesus, this is unbelievable. You want to see these guys come up into the main roster, if you will.
Yep.
And then, I mean, Kevin Owens got lucky, but Finn Balor came. He was like, we were so excited for Finn Balor. All right, he got injured. I mean, things happen. But now he's back. He fought probably to get back to NXT. He's like, you know what? I just gotta have some free reign on myself. I can't do this. And I mean, Ricochet.
Yeah.
Where's Ricochet?
He's with Cedric Alexander in that tag team.
I mean, it's just that they might be better off staying at NXT.
Yeah.
But you know what?
What's that?
There's a fine line. There's a fine line between the bad things that WWE does and, in my opinion, the bad things that AEW does. You know, where there's too much control versus not enough control. And I got nothing against AEW, but it's almost there's kind of like this indie mentality where like every match you got to get all your stuff in. Every match.
Yeah, there's a lot of it seems a lot of dangerous spots in AEW.
Yeah, but at the same time, when again going back to when we were growing up in the Stone Ages, there was a hierarchy. You know, there was. Yeah, back in television days, we used to watch it on the radio.
Gorgeous George.
There were, like Paul was saying, the unpredictable Johnny Rods. If he got in one offensive move the whole match, that was an insane week for him, right? But you had what Bobby Heenan would call the ham and eggers. You know, the curtain jerkers, the opening guys, the enhancement talent. Then you had mid-card guys, your Tito Santanas, your Junkyard Dogs, you know, the guys that you knew, that you rooted for anyway, but had a 50-50 chance of winning or losing, but primarily their job was to set up the next heel to go on to fight Hogan. And then you had, you know, your headliners, right? But if a mid-card guy was fighting a mid-card guy, it would be a pretty even match. If a mid-card guy was fighting one of the enhancement talent, like what Paul was saying, it was a squash and the thing was over in 5 minutes. If it was a headliner fighting a jobber, well, then he would open with his finisher, and that would be that. But there was that hierarchy. Whereas, like sometimes in AEW, you're watching and you're going, wait a second, why is this match taking 20 minutes? He's got a title match in a week. Why is it taking him so long to beat this guy? Mm-hmm. So from kind of a psychological and a logic standpoint, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Versus, like I said, with McMahon, where like every match is kind of this very, very similar thing. Again, back in our day, when you went and saw a live show, no two matches were the same. The opening match, it was two preliminary guys, but they'd be in the ring, and it would be more or less, a scientific match, no punches thrown. And then, as it built, you have a tag match, maybe there was a ladies match, but no two matches were the same. And if later on in the card, you were going to have two guys leave the ring and fight on the outside, that wouldn't happen before then. And if you had a guy taking a chair, no one would use a chair before then. And if a guy would get color, if there would be blood in the main event, there'd be no bleeding before that. Whereas now, a lot of times, and I think both companies are guilty of it, a lot of times I feel like I'm watching the same match over and over and over again. Yep. Because going back to what I said before, the psychology of me caring for one or the other isn't there, and everyone's just trying to get their stuff in. So,
yeah, I think it's
we're back to that.
Yeah, I think it's like nowadays they are probably catering to the internet 5-second attention span person.
Yes.
I mean, if they don't get all this stuff in, or if they're not expecting their finishing move, or it's definitely a totally different time. But
it is,
but it just seems like I'll go back to my McMahon thing. It just seems like what's going to happen when he gives up the reins or he's no longer in charge? I mean, are we going to see finally Triple H just take over?
I kind of hope so, because he's done some really good stuff with NXT.
It seems like it. Yeah.
But that's kind of going back again to what we had. By the time we got to a pay-per-view, not only was the match built up, but you never saw it before.
Right.
Like if Hogan was fighting Bundy, for instance,
it would be once.
Maybe a couple of weeks before, you'd see
be a run-in.
Hogan and Tito Santana fight Bundy and Morocco. But you'd never see that one-on-one match until the pay-per-view.
Right.
Now, by the time you get to the pay-per-view, you've seen that match 3 times on Raw and SmackDown already. And because the arenas look the same on pay-per-view as they do on Monday nights, there's virtually no difference between a Monday night show and a pay-per-view anymore, other than the pay-per-view going 7 hours. It doesn't. It doesn't feel. You're not giving me anything different than what I've been watching. There's nothing really special about it. The only thing they have going for them is the fact that I'm not paying $50 for it like I used to. But other than that, I'd be kind of disappointed these days if I was paying for one and not the other.
Yeah. Steve,
what you got?
Right here.
Yes, sir. He's laughing his ass off microphone.
About that. So there's always, good and bad about everything. What is the high in professional wrestling and what is the low in professional wrestling? And this question is for anyone to answer.
Oh boy, I think Al's more qualified to answer that than me.
Are we talking about the business in general, or today versus yesterday, or?
I mean, it really depends on how you see wrestling. You could be like, I would say, today versus what wrestling used to be.
The highs versus the lows. On the one hand, the fact. Let me qualify this even more. Are we talking the good for the guys in the industry or for fans?
fans?
For fans, the best thing right now is just the accessibility. You know, back in the day, in order for us to see old matches, you know, we'd have to go to, you know, conventions and trade tapes and just to get a glimpse of what's going on in different territories at different times. You know, the fact that you guys are in a generation where you can go on demand and punch in someone's name and see basically their entire career laid out, that you can sit and watch it. That's amazing. That's very, very cool. You know, in that aspect, you know, it's never been a better time to be a fan. On the other hand, I think that the internet not only did it, you know, take some of the magic away in terms of what we, you know, experienced, but some of the exchanges between fans really gets ugly. Like, I don't understand why you have to choose between AEW or NXT or AEW and WWE or NWA or anything else. I don't get why you can't just be a wrestling fan, because I think they all have something to offer that you're going to enjoy. Not to mention the fact that for outsiders who are not wrestling fans, they think we're all idiots. So, you know, we're in this together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the people, the vitriol between, you know, people, it gets crazy. And I guess that's always been a thing. And even here in New York, where it's like, you're a Met fan or a Yankee fan. Well, if you're a fan of New York baseball, then what difference does it make? But you know, it's just there's such a, you know, you should be rooting for both to work out. You should be rooting for all these, but because for these guys to not have an option of somewhere else to go, where, all right, you know what, I had my WWE run, you know, it's time for me to maybe go somewhere else and work with, you know, a different crew, try a different, you know, gimmick. You know, if there's just one, then it really hurts the business. So as long as there are, you know, options, it's a really, really good time to be a wrestling fan right now.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, Dad, you want to add to that, or next question?
Your Honor,
no, I mean, yeah, the highs of being. I mean, we are lucky. Al and myself are lucky that we were younger when this started to, right before it took off. You know, right before when did it really take off? The early mid '90s it started to really take off. But we were watching.
It depends on what you talk about take off. But you know, we had the Rock and Wrestling connection with Cyndi Lauper was the first peak. And then, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Monday Night Wars took it to a different level. Right.
And then we had WWE basically buying them out, owning the wrestling. So we've seen it all, you know. Yeah. So we were actually able to see all that. And I mean, the lows. I mean, you can say that for fans. I mean, I don't think there's any lows for fans except for. It's even better, like I was saying, you used to have to buy WrestleMania 4 or 8 or 6. Yep. You'd have to pay $59.99 and you'd get together.
And invite people over that you didn't like so they could chip in.
Right. Exactly. You'd have to have a whole WrestleMania party because it was just, you know, there was a lot of people. And now it's just, you know, you just pick up the network. It's $9.99 a month and you get it. And hey, I'm going to cancel it. Because I'm not going to watch these 3 pay-per-views because I'll watch Monday Night Raw and I'll find out what's going on. And then I'll sign up again and I'll get a free month and I'll get WrestleMania for free. So, I mean, it's just so much more accessible to everybody now. And back in the day, it was really, you know, you either liked it or like you said, you liked it or you hated it. You know, there was nothing else. You had no other options.
Yeah. Antwan, what do you got, my man?
All right, first, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you broke up a little. You're good, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted to ask, so as you guys were growing up watching wrestling, have you guys ever once considered taking a role or career in the wrestling business?
Let's see, Dad. You go first, Dad.
I was. I tried out for the part of Paulie dangerously on. No, I didn't. No, I sort of watched wrestling up until it was weird, like I got married and, things started changing a little bit. So I started getting away from it. I sort of lost the years of like 92 to like 99, almost like 7 or 8 years. So I really didn't have any thoughts of doing anything, but I'm sure that Al has some really good information coming up. I do remember, Al, we were getting into the wrestling thing. We used to have this online service called Prodigy. Remember Prodigy, Al? And it was like chat rooms, basically. I don't think it was anything, right? Yeah. And there was always message boards and everything, and it was wrestling message boards, and we'd always go in there, and you'd have this stuff like, this guy sucks, you suck, but it was like the start of the internet wrestling, and that's where I left it. But then I'll take it from there, where he went to. I do remember calling a 976 number and hearing Al's updates every week. So that was very interesting.
That's right. Yeah. So, Paul and I, we did that thing with Prodigy. In fact, I remember calling you from the Garden the night that Andre passed away.
Andre died.
So that you could put it up online.
Yeah.
But so back when the internet was born, before it was a thing, before you could even do your own websites. This is going back a ways. Like Paul said, I was doing some 900 hotline stuff. I was doing it for a few different sports, and a friend of mine, another comedian named Steve Strangio, had asked me to do some artwork for him on a project that he was doing, and he wanted to turn it to a website. So we went into the city to meet with guys who built websites, webmasters, before puny humans could do it ourselves. And we sat down, we had the meeting, and it was literally, I had gotten up from my chair and I had put my jacket on to leave, and the guy who was running the meeting, a guy, his name was Remy, he said to me, he goes, "Oh, by the way, Steve, you do a wrestling hotline. What would you think about turning that into a website?" And I went, "Yeah, whatever." I really didn't give it much thought. And next thing you knew, Scoops Wrestling was born. Me wanting to get into the business, not so much, but getting to
involved
with the guys and go backstage and eventually get power bombed through a table. That was pretty cool. But that was my one spot. I retired that night, so that. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I had two spots. One was that, and 1 year I had gotten an award from an indie fed in Mississippi, and they asked me to guest referee the main event. It was a Dirty Dutch Mantel against a local babyface, the Cajun sensation, Blade Boudreaux, and as the day was going on, I was just going to referee the match, and then Dutch called me in my hotel room. He goes, "It would be really cool if you turned heel." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, what if in the middle of the match, you, this New York guy, what if you turned heel and helped me beat the babyface?" I'm like, "As long as Blade's cool with it, let's work it out." So, we kind of walked through it that I was gonna hide a tag rope and hand it off to Dutch to choke the guy out, and it was going to be fun. It was going to be a ball. It was going to be a barrel of laughs. And we're getting ready to go out in Tupelo, Mississippi, into the arena. And
something tells me this ain't going to go well.
I'm at the curtain, and Dutch walks over to me. He goes, "Oh," as an afterthought, "Oh, by the way, you do realize you're in Tupelo, Mississippi now." I was like, "What is that supposed to mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, this isn't New York. Out here, they still think the moon landing is fake and wrestling is real." And I'm going, what does that mean? And sure enough, we're in the middle of the match, and it comes to the point where I'm going to hand off the tag rope to Dutch, and I hand it to him, and I'm holding Blade's arms behind his back, and the place is going crazy. And I realized they wanted to kill me. It was, they literally, like I'm watching security, like getting really nervous around ringside, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm not going to live. And a couple of the baby faces actually had to come running out from back and pretend to be beating me up in order to get me out the back and out the door to my car. Otherwise, Tupelo, Mississippi fans were going to kill me. So, so that was a, you know, I dipping my pinky into the business, but break the barrier with the power bomb through a table. That was my one bump, and I'm good. I'm done.
Oh well, talking about break the barrier, you know, how did that table bump feel? That's the question.
How did it feel?
I mean, how did it come about? You know, how were you like? You know what?
No,
I'm gonna take a bump.
How did it feel? It felt like it fell through a table.
Like I was being tickled by the whiskers of kittens. How did it come about? I'll give you the short version was the previous year. Scoops was bought by a company called Extreme Interactive Media in Oklahoma, and then we became more and more popular, and we became the biggest wrestling site on the web. And at that point, it came down to either CBS Sports buying us or Snowball.com, who's the parent company of IGN. And we ended up.
I'm hoping CBS went. Man,
so close. So
I was hoping CBS Sports.
We went with IGN, and all of a sudden we had a budget to do stuff. And someone came up with the idea. Well, what if we booked our own show? So we were thinking about what we would want to do, and what it came down to was we came up with the idea of let's reach out to 12 or 13 different indie feds across the country, and in one night we're going to have them decide their championships in one show. And yeah, well, it was up to them. You want to do tag team, you want to do, you know, your heavyweight, your intercontinental, your hardcore, whatever you want to do, that's up to you. How you want to book it, that's up to you. But they have to have a belt, and we got to do it. So, and then we ended up booking it in ECW Arena in Philly.
Yep.
And we had the show, and it was crazy. It was amazing. It was surreal. I can't believe we did it. And we didn't have an ending. We didn't have a big blow-off match. I mean, the basic idea was we were going to have the champions, all the guys who won their matches. We were going to have one battle royal at the end, and whoever won that was going to get the Break the Barrier trophy. So. It still felt kind of anticlimactic, and I was there with another comedian named Paul Bond. And Paul, before the show began, we noticed how much Paul resembled one of the guys who was in from California, this big blonde guy, who, if you see Beyond the Mat, he's in that. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. But anyway, so that guy had the great idea of, hey, Paul could be my manager. And we went, oh, okay. And every 5 minutes or so, Paul would come running back to me and go, oh, I'm taking a bump. Oh, that's great. And he'd come running back, oh, I'm getting punched. Oh, that's terrific. Good for you. And it came time for that match, and everyone was still trying to decide how we were going to end the night. And someone said, hey, why don't you take a power bomb through a table? And we all laughed. And by all, I mean me, because they were serious. And I'm going, I'm not taking a power bomb through a table. And we got to this match with Paul Bond, and Paul's taking bump after bump, and at one point he took a shoulder block and ended up in the second row. And I'm going, Jesus Christ, I got to be powerbombed through a table. I can't let him show me up. So we decided, yeah, powerbomb me through a table, who can do it? And we decided Tom Brandi, who wrestled in WWF as Salvatore Sincere, and now he wrestles as the Patriot in Big Time Wrestling and a few other places. And we decided Tom was gonna power bomb me through a table. And I remember going over to my wife and telling her, I said, my wife Teresa, I said, hey honey, not for nothing, Tom Brandi's gonna power bomb me through a table tonight. And she went, oh, okay. And she just kind of went along her way. And I realized she didn't know what a power bomb was. But that was okay. So she walked backstage at one point, and she saw me and Tom kind of walking through. He's going, all right, I'm going to kick you in the gut. You bend over, and I'm going to stick your head between my legs, and I'm going to lift you up, and you do a sit-up, and I'm going to powerbomb you today. But we went, great. And she saw us practicing, and she freaked out. She all of a sudden had a breakdown. So all the other wrestlers loved her, and they were comforting her and calming her down. And we said, okay, we're good. And what we planned on doing was Tom was going to win this battle royale, and then we were going to go in with the trophy. And Teresa was going to come into the ring, and I was going to go into the ring. And do you guys know who Lou Thez is?
I do.
Oh, the young generation. Okay.
Yeah.
Lou Thez is basically the Babe Ruth of professional wrestling. When we're done, look him up. The guy was probably the greatest champion of all time. While Bruno Sammartino was the guy in the Northeast in WWF, Lou was the champion in the NWA, and this guy was the man. And anyway, so Lou was there, and he was in his 70s, but he was still, formidable. Lou tells you to do something, you did it, okay? So we went through the whole thing, and Tom won the trophy, and what we decided was, he was going to smash the trophy, and then he was going to curse me out, and he was going to powerbomb me through a table, and I told my wife, at that point, I'm going to be selling it like I'm dead. So I need you, come kneel next to me and grab my hand, and I'll squeeze your hand so you'll know I'm okay, but everyone else will still think I'm hurt. But you'll know I'm okay, and we'll take it from there. And we went, oh, okay. So we get in the ring, and Tom smashes the trophy, and at that point, Lou is being very protective of my wife and said, get out of the ring. So Teresa left the ring with Lou, and then Brandy power bombs me through the table. Place goes crazy, and I'm laying there in the wreckage, and my heart's going a mile a minute, and I'm waiting for the adrenaline to pass so I can, wiggle my toes and make sure I'm not paralyzed. I'm going, okay, there's my toes, there's my spine, no permanent damage. I'm okay. But Teresa's not there, and I didn't know what was going on because, again, I'm laying there, eyes closed, pretending I'm dead. And Tom grabs a microphone, he's going around the ring, and he's bad-mouthing all the people at ringside, he's cursing them out, and he turns to my wife is standing there, and he goes to say something to her, and my wife, all 96 pounds of her, the little Sicilian that she is, she holds back and pops him across the face. She hits him, a slap heard round the world, and the place goes crazy. They go nuts, and I'm laying there going, is someone coming to save me? Why is everyone cheering? I don't know. So anyway, that wasn't planned. The slap wasn't part of the plan at all. So Brandy had to save face somehow. So he climbs back into the ring, takes half of the table, puts it on top of me, and begins to stomp me. He is stomping the living hell out of me. I'm going, we did not discuss this. This is unauthorized. So now the promoters, dressed up as paramedics, come running out, and Chris Lash, he used to be the promoter of APWF, he helped me book the whole thing. He comes over to me, and he leans next to me and goes, Al, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine, but Teresa's not here. Let her know I'm okay. I'm whispering it to him. He goes, okay. So he climbs out of the ring and goes over, and he says, Al's okay. But in the moment, with the adrenaline pumping and the crowd and everything else, he might as well have said to her, Al's dead. Because now she starts crying and going. So now the crowd, they're buying this hook, line, and sinker. They're freaking out. They're going, what did he just tell her? Oh my God, oh my God. So now he slides back in the ring. He's like, do you want us to, we can get a stretcher for you? I said, no, just lift me up and carry me out. So they get me over their shoulders, and the place is chanting, Al's hardcore. Now I raise my finger to the place is going nuts. So we walk backstage, and people walk up to us, and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you legitimately hit Tom Brandy. You hit Tom Brandy." And I'm going, "I didn't hit Tom Brandy." And I look over my wife, and she's going, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And for days after, all the dirt sheets were writing that I was in the hospital, I had a punctured lung, that my shoulder was shattered, that my collarbone was broken. And the first call I get, it wasn't to ask how I was. The first call I got was, "So who was the wrestler playing your wife?" And I tell people that story, and they go, oh my God, that's so funny. I tell it to wrestlers, and they go, that is so romantic. You just threw her body in the way to protect you. So that was my one and only bump, ECW arena. I took a power bomb, and I'm good. I have nothing left to prove. Although, if you ever get a chance to watch that, the one other thing of note that happened at that show that we had no prior knowledge, Shane Douglas quit ECW on our show. Yeah, because we were at ECW Arena, we're like, well, we should have someone from ECW here. And our show was actually the night before an ECW pay-per-view. And he got in the ring, and he went off on Paul E. And he quit ECW before our show began. So that was like, oh, that just happened. So we made a little bit of history there. So it was very cool.
Wow.
Steep.
Al, is that? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask a question.
Oh, go for it, Ted.
Is there any way Break the Barrier could ever be aired, or is it anything? Is it just?
I have a DVD.
Yeah? That's it.
I have a DVD of it, and I can get it to you. The quality. From back in the day, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Pretty much like the rest of the website.
Like the home video.
Yeah, but you know what? I do have it, and you know, I there's a lot of it that I probably I couldn't commercially put it out,
right?
Because a lot of the guys were just you know what theme music you want to use. I don't know. Like we had Headbanger. One of the Headbangers was on the show. He actually came to Adam Sandler's song at a medium pace. If you ever hear it, it's freaking hysterical.
Yeah.
But so like for that reason alone,
yeah, you can't clear that.
But I'll show it to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw you go through the table. I mean, that's all over the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be great. Too bad, because it would be so cool to just say, hey, this happened a few years back. Check this out. And
that's not the tragic part of this whole thing. The tragic part of this whole thing was that we were planning on doing a second one the next year. And Harley Race was helping me book it. Oh. And IGN, Snowball.com, the parent company, decided that they wanted to put their money elsewhere. And I don't have, it was, Snowball.com was divided between like guys sites, like all these different sports sites and wrestling, and then like sites for women with fashion and some other stuff. And the fashion people wanted to do something, so they gave them the money instead of us. And so we'll never know. But the second year, the plan was, instead of going to indie feds, I was going to all the guys who had their own wrestling schools. And two of the guys were Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So with Harley Race's help, it was pretty amazing. But now we will never know.
No, never know. Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah, I've rambled long enough.
It's cool. It's a history lesson.
Yeah.
Steep.
Lou Thez, look it up. Thesz. He was the man.
Yes. Steepstone, what do you got?
Whether it was, the Attitude or the Ruthless Aggression, which era in wrestling was your favorite?
Dad?
For me, it was the Attitude Era. Again, about the time of Ruthless Aggression, I was sort of on the sidelines. I wasn't watching religiously until, I don't know when we got into it, Mike, but I turned it on one night for you, and, the rest is history there. Yeah. But it was definitely like, the Attitude Era. Again, it went from cartoons to, whoa, what's going on here? There's scantily clad women wrestling, and there's the owner of the company getting beaten with a bedpan. I mean, it got good. It got interesting again, and that was my favorite, definitely.
Yeah.
I can't really speak for the Ruthless Aggression era, but
yeah, I have to agree. I mean, Scoops was that was kind of when we were, on top.
Yeah.
During the Attitude Era.
Yeah, your signs were on Monday Night Raw a lot.
Yeah, that was
You
freaky.
see the scoop sign.
I'm sitting downstairs in the basement wearing sweatpants, watching TV all by myself, and suddenly someone's holding up a sign that says "Al is God." And I'm like, really? That's cool. Yeah, it was. I probably, I looked through rose-colored glasses at the Attitude Era. I was a big Bret Hart fan, and for me, I have something. I have good memories of all the different eras. I stopped watching. My son was born in 2004, and I have pictures. WrestleMania was 3 days after I brought him home, and I have pictures of him watching it with me at WrestleMania. And when the Benoit tragedy happened, I stopped. That was, I had interviewed him, and I interviewed Guerrero, and that hurt a lot seeing that, and I turned it off. I walked away for years, and then 3 years ago, maybe 4 years, my son discovered it, and I'll never forget smartening him up. I had to smarten him up because he was so angry at Jon Stewart for hitting John Cena with a chair that I had to sit him down and go, look, here's how it is. And I think he was more devastated at that than he was about Santa. But he has a brand new appreciation, and probably at this moment he knows more than I do. Like
Al, I'm telling you, this one does too.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like he's referencing these matches from Japan from like 28 years ago. I'm going, what? Okay, yeah, sure. He's an encyclopedia of knowledge. It's awesome. So he got me back in.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Antwan.
All right. So, as you guys seen, the landscape of pro wrestling has changed. So, if you guys could if you were to be a creative writer, and I'm pretty sure you guys may have a lot of ideas on what you look at the current roster, versus how the roster from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ideas you think you guys could implement into today's roster? Looking back into how it was, booked back then when you guys were watching growing up.
Right.
Dad, go for it.
Go, Quilly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good question.
It is a very good question.
That's why I put it on, because I don't got those.
You got, no. You're just the glue that holds us together.
Yes.
I mean, if I was booking today and make it sort of like the old, I would definitely go back to what worked, and it was, for me again, it was that Attitude Era where it was, all right, it's not going to be the way it was because there was some, some things were very questionable. I don't know if you guys probably watched it on, on tape or on YouTube and everything that happened during then, but I think that the bikini contests and wasn't there a match once where I don't know who it was. It was Jerry Lawler's wife. It was like bikini versus bikini.
Yeah.
I mean, there was stuff like that. I don't think that would fly today, but I think I probably wouldn't. And now you see that they're starting to curse a little bit in WWE.
They drop an S-bomb.
Crazy. They drop, exactly.
Yeah, they're pushing it a little bit. Yep.
A little bit, but I don't know. I would find some way to go back to that. Just that the your ultimate baby face. I mean, what they're doing with Seth Rollins, I don't know. I'm not enjoying it right now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's like he's a messiah, but who's his guys? He's got well, now he got another guy, but it was Buddy Murphy. I don't know. I think that I would. I can't answer that because I don't know what I would do. I wish I had the answers, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you have some thoughts, Al. I don't know. I would definitely want to see them get back to, I would say get back to like 99, 2000, 2001, when they were fighting for their lives, and they passed WCW, and they were doing something right, obviously,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how I would book it.
All right. Well, here's one of the problems with today's business, not with wrestling itself, but with today's business. And it started back with the Attitude Era. It started with Austin. And that is your heel. Other than MJF, like what we were talking about, there really aren't really true heels. Everyone wants to be the cool heel, right? The anti-hero. And that isn't, you might say it's ego. I think part of it is just business, because a large part of their paycheck is the merchandise, right?
Yeah.
And if people hate you so much that they don't want to buy your T-shirt, you're going to lose some cash. So I think there's a problem that you don't have the true heel. But that being said, just as a generic blanket statement, not talking about this guy should fight this guy should feud with this guy. I think what you need to do is go back to the ideas of there being rules. When we were kids, there were like different, WCCW and parts of the NWA. Like, you couldn't even throw a guy over the top rope or you'd be disqualified.
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah.
You couldn't do closed fist punches. That most matches would start, collar and elbow tie up. You'd start it off scientific, and then it would devolve into a fight. Now it just kind of is like it's at 10, right off the get-go. So I would say bring back some rules, bring back some disqualifications, bring back some countouts, and only because it gives you more options with booking. It gives you an out that, the babyface should have won, but he lost by countout because, let's just say, he was fighting Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy was under the ring and held onto his ankle, so there was a countout, right? So that there was a reason and there was a logic behind not only there being a rematch, but that rematch was in a steel cage, so Buddy Murphy couldn't, interfere. A certain logic to the progression of matches. Because if you don't have rules and that sort of thing, then there really isn't a heel if there aren't rules to break.
Right.
And just from a fit, what I was saying before about, give me a little bit of logic. Right now, you don't have blood. That's one of the things we don't have from the Attitude Era. People bled back in the Attitude Era.
Yep.
So when you had Hell in a Cell, it made sense because somebody was going to bleed, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day when it was just open hand chops and slaps, you could do that all the live long day. A guy would turn red, but that's it. Here, you got guys going in the ring and throwing 30 straight punches to someone's face. You're gonna bleed. And if you don't, clearly those punches aren't landing. So if you're going to be PG, don't have matches that need to be R-rated for them to make sense. Decide what you want your product to be and act accordingly. Jim Cornette had a very good point. He was ripping apart the Money in the Bank match, which I was entertained by it, but there were two things that he said. One was the fact that the building is only 4 floors, so why you wouldn't just take the elevator straight to the roof and get out? I would have said, booking story-wise, have it that either you shut down the elevators or you had to get off on each floor to get a key that would let you get to the next level. Just some nonsense that makes it, or give me a reason to do that. And the second thing was, aside from him committing murder, by throwing 2 people off the roof. The next night, if you're gonna be that dopey, show them that they landed on a window washer's thing on the side. Start the show with that, with them being tangled in the rope, and then just take it from there. Just give me, as nonsensical as it is, throwing him off that roof is winning $8 million at bingo. Just give me a little bit of logic to hang my hat on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my booking answer to everything. Aside from bring back managers to talk when guys can't talk, and let guys talk. Let guys, you look at the stuff that MJF, you look at the stuff that Cody is doing, you look at the stuff that Dustin did at this point in his career. Let them get on the microphone and talk it if they can't have someone teach them. Stop giving them everything to memorize and go out there and say.
Yeah, to add on to that, they did the same thing with AJ and Undertaker. AJ got buried and he came back like 2 weeks later, and without
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But at least he's traumatized.
Yeah.
At least there's, at least he's having nightmares about it. That you go, okay, maybe he's not dead, but there's been an effect.
Yeah.
I think that may have happened, Al, when didn't they when they blew up Vince McMahon's limo.
Oh, the limo.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically dead, and then the next day there was a tragedy. I don't know which one, unfortunately. It was a tragedy. It was Benoit right after it. It was one of them. So then they had to get him out, and and it never happened. But it just seems like, ever since that, there's no closure to these crazy decisions.
And they should have learned that years ago when friggin' the Giant drove his monster truck off the roof. And he came back the same night. No, dude, you're dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yep.
I mean, before our parents, like your grandparents' times, this used to happen when they would go to see, the serials, the movies that would be continued every week, and a guy would clearly drive off a cliff at the end one week, and you go, oh my God. And you couldn't wait till next week to see, because they have to start with his funeral. But then the next week, they would show what was supposed to be the end, except in this version, he jumped out at the last second. Wait a second, that's not how it ended. But now we've gone one step further, and we're not even showing him jumping out that last second. No. We're just going, what you saw last night, you didn't see that. Keep going. So, Just give us a little credit, just a little. Yeah.
So you did a lot of interviews. I saw. You did one with Kurt Angle, Bret Hart. Did you have like a least favorite interview, like someone that was a total douchebag?
Man, you know what? I can't say I had a least favorite. There were ones that were tough. I'll put it that way. One of the first ones when I was interviewing Arn Anderson was kind of tricky because he didn't want to break kayfabe, and everything I wanted to ask him, he would have had to. So that one was kind of tough.
That was from the day where he was, kayfabe was still alive, right?
Kayfabe was still a thing.
Yeah.
The second time, the picture I have interviewing Bret Hart, that one was kind of tough too. That was when he first went to WCW. And I love Bret. I'm the biggest Bret Hart mark you'll ever meet. He was my favorite. And that was like the second or third time I got to talk to him, but that was the first time I spoke to him face to face. And he just left WWE. The Montreal Screwjob had just happened. Yep. He was over there in WCW, and they were still trying to figure out how they were going to book him. And his Wrestling with Shadows documentary had come out. And this was a few months before Owen. He was so bitter that no matter what question I asked him, it all went back to Vince. Like I could literally have asked him, so Bret, when you were 10 years old, you learned to ride a bike. And he would, here we are 28 years later, and the Vince McMahon is screwing me over. It's like, all right, So that was tricky. But most of these guys were awesome. And I was a kid in the candy store. Man, every interview I got to do, every guy I got to meet, Well, one of my favorites of all time, one of my favorite nights of being a wrestling journalist is like one of the most reviled shows of all time. I'm sure you guys have heard of Heroes of Wrestling.
Oh no.
If not, you can either Google Heroes of Wrestling or just Google worst pay-per-view ever. Either one will work.
Wait, the boxing match?
No,
okay.
This is the one where they decided to bring a bunch of guys out of retirement and have a bunch of legends on it. Jimmy Snuka was there, Bob Orton, the Bushwhackers, Sheik and Volkov, One Man Gang was on the show.
Sounds good for 1984.
Yeah, this was probably in, I'm going to say 98, 99. It was in Mississippi, and it was an awful pay-per-view, according to most people. On the other hand, I wasn't watching it because I was backstage doing interviews with everybody. And this shows like the lack of technology. We had people on Scoops would type in their questions, and someone would read them to me over the phone. I would ask the wrestler, and then say it over the phone, and they would type it in on the other end.
Wow.
It was like when you watch the Flintstones, and they take a picture with a camera, and there's a little bird pecking out what the picture's supposed to look like. That was the technology back then. But for me, I was there with legends. I was there with these and eating dinner, and there was a crazy amount of Samoans, including Yokozuna, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Jake Roberts. In fact, if for nothing else, look it up for Jake Roberts, because he was a mess. And I'll never forget this. He showed up, and he was in an altered state. And his manager at the time came running over to me, going, "He's got the flu. He's taking NyQuil." And I'm going,
exhaustion. It's exhaustion.
And this is why I was probably popular back then. I really believed in kayfabe, and I wasn't there to expose the business. And I told him, as long as he's not a mess out there in the ring, no one ever needs to know about this. Except he was a mess out there in the ring.
Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. I'll give you guys the cluster F of a finish for the show. It was supposed to be. They've been traveling up and down doing the show before they went to the pay-per-view, and it was supposed to be. They started off having, it was supposed to be two singles matches. It was supposed to be Jake Roberts versus Jim Neidhart and Yokozuna versus King Kong Bundy. And the gimmick was going to be that at some point someone interfered for someone's match, and they were going to make it a tag match at the end. And it was going to be Yoko and Jake as baby faces against Neidhart and Bundy. And the finish was supposed to be Jake gives Neidhart the DDT, tags in Yoko, who then does the big corner splash, and that's the show, and everyone goes home happy. Except Jake, as I mentioned, was in no shape to wrestle, and Neidhart. We were supposed to go through everything. We were supposed to have kind of a walkthrough, a tech meeting that afternoon, and Neidhart doesn't show up. And he shows up 5 minutes before we're set to go on air. And then he goes out and he cuts a promo. So now the entire audience, they're in the arena and they're at home, know that he's there. He's in the building. And then he gets done cutting the promo and he comes back and goes, "I'm not doing the job." And we all like, "What?"
Really?
He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm going back to New York. I'm going back to WWF. So I'm not doing the job on the pay-per-view. Figure it out." And we all went, "Oh, okay." And it actually came down to Bundy thinking fast and kind of knocking down Jake and pinning him legit to finish the match. And everyone was really, really pissed. And the show was snake bit from the very, very beginning, to the point that they had this. It was at Casino Magic in Mississippi, and the geniuses who put it together never realized that children under 18 would not be allowed to walk through the casino to get to the arena.
Holy
There was no entrance for kids to get in. So it was this old audience that was there. No energy from teens and above. So it was, from the get-go, it was a nightmare. But I had the time of my life. I had a full buffet dinner sitting with the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. It was a friggin' dream come true. So that's that. Yeah. So I think we all, when we look back, it's like music. We all look back and go, our music was great. Yours sucks. To the next generation. And it's like, now that, you know what? It's like we're just looking at that 10% that was really awesome. There was stuff back then that was awful, and there were guys, from my dad's generation looking at me going, "What's this crap you're watching? Let me tell you when this was good. Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Cola, and their parents were telling them the same thing. So, just enjoy all of it."
Yeah. Steve, what do you got?
So earlier we were talking about how back then compared to now. So you see how now wrestling is PG because you have a lot of kids watching it. Do you feel like that puts too much restrictions on it? And if they went back to being TVMA, would more people have interest back at it again, or will it be more enjoyable as it was before?
I think it would. That's just my opinion. For me, I guess I don't know now because I don't have a little kid watching with me. But if I did have like a 6 or 7 or 8 year old sitting down watching it, I don't think we would. I don't think we would be watching it. The Attitude Era. Mike, I don't remember, when did I first put on a Monday Night Raw and go, "Hey, you might like this"?
2011, and I was like, "Fuck no." And then
2011. Okay, so we definitely missed missed the Attitude Era. So I didn't put it on. But you were, he was, I don't know, how old are you? It was a couple of years old. It was 2011, you were 9. Right?
Sure.
9 years old.
Sure.
All right, so 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have done that if I would have known that the Attitude Era was in full force. Do I want it now? Sure, because it would be more interesting for me. But I don't think that I don't think that would fly with the kids these days. And I don't think McMahon will do that now. He's a public company. Billions of dollars. I don't think it'll ever come down to that again, but it'll get close. It'll get as close as it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think as long as you give people warning, if you I think that if you went hardcore back to that once a year, I think that pay-per-view would be huge.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you watch the match between in AEW between Cody and Dustin. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that it's almost like asking, well, should movies be PG or R? Because I've seen an awful lot of really good PG movies, and I've seen an awful lot of terrible R-rated movies. I think you can't rely on one or the other in and of itself. I think that when I give my comedy classes and people ask me, do I have to be clean? Can I drop an F-bomb? My answer is that you do what you have to do with the understanding of you have to respect the audience and let them know what's coming. And when it comes to dropping the F-bomb, you're getting people's attention, and then they go, okay, well, now what? You'd better have an answer for it. So in the case of like Cody and Dustin, it wasn't so much the blood, it was the emotion of that match. But the fact that you had the blood sold the emotion of that match. Whereas we had a lot of matches back in the day where when you took the emotion out of it, it was almost like everyone trying to top each other with how hardcore they can go without it having any kind of psychology or passion or reason to go along with it. If it's just hardcore for hardcore's sake, that's going to end badly. You're setting up a New Jack situation. But I think, dude, I had a great afternoon with New Jack once. But we'll have that story some other time. But I definitely think there's a place for, like, if you had your tables, ladders, and chairs, or your Hell in a Cell. Don't have the match unless you can do it, unless you can be edgy and a little bit hardcore. Otherwise, you're making a promise that you can't fulfill. So if you're going to keep it PG, then be PG, but be the best PG that you can be.
Yep.
But if you are going to go R, don't go R just for R's sake. Just because you can doesn't mean you should all the time. Save it for when it really counts, and then do it. And then have that Hell in a Cell match that we will never forget. That's kind of my answer.
Yeah. Antwan.
All right. So you look at the talent today in wrestling and look at the talent from back in the day when you guys were watching. So I want to get on top of the dream matches. So what wrestlers from back in the day, in their property, like to hang with some, like what wrestlers would you say could go into the ring with some guys like, look at AJ or Seth or Joe. What are some dream match scenarios would you like to get? What you guys would love to see if we're speaking dream matches wise, from back in the day to incorporate into that.
Wow. I mean, I don't think you can get any.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, you probably got it. I don't think you can get any. I don't think you can get anyone from like the WWF, to compete with any of these guys. But I think it would be really cool if it was like, if you could bring Steve Austin into the current era in his prime, him. Him and AJ, did they have a fight? Wait a second. No, right? No, never. Okay. I'm thinking of like stuff that might have happened.
The gray area in between.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, you can have giants against giants. I mean, Brock Lesnar against who, I mean, I don't think anyone could sort of like match up with these guys from back in the day before Stone Cold Steve Austin era. I mean, yeah, Bret Hart. I'm sure you'll have a Bret Hart match with someone, but I don't see, as they say, will this make money? I don't know. I don't know. What do you got, Al?
Well, the Bret Hart, definitely. I would put Bret in there with AJ or Bret. I would say also against either AJ or Seth Rollins, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
There you go.
What a bumping machine that man was. I would pay to see that. But yeah, if you're talking about guys who can athletically hang with them, those Bret, Hennig. Angle in his prime. If you're talking about just gimmicks, like what would be a good, like what you were saying, Paul, with the big men. If you go back to like Brock and like Stan Hansen or
Sid.
The other thing, we really don't have we don't have such a great tag team division. You don't have guys who are really, a tag team artist. Because when you do, they ruin it. Between Gallows and Anderson, the two that make me furious. Revival, friggin' love those guys.
Yep.
And also Chad Gable and did you guys see that match that they had in NXT? When it was them against Revival, before the Revival.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Oh my God. It was one of the matches that really got my son into it. Before either team came up to the main roster in WWE, these two had a match. And it was beautiful. It was like, old school NWA, just like the psychology that with the story they told in there, the hot tags, going back again to a lot of the rules just being ignored. You don't have hot tags. You don't have guys that you have to, be holding on to the tag rope, or double team moves. You don't have, it used to be, Paul will remember this, that if you had a singles guy against a single guy from a tag team, the tag team guy would lose all the time, every time.
Pretty much,
because
right.
he was considered a tag team wrestler. And conversely, if you had two top singles guys together, they would lose to the tag team
figure it out.
because they were not tag team wrestlers. That was a thing. You didn't have guys just get slapped together and go, okay, we're now a tag team. There was, I miss that. So, unfortunately, when it comes to singles guys, there's that handful, like Paul and I were saying, that, the Bret Hart, the Kurt Hennig, some of the guys in WCW that I put up there maybe. But tag teams, I don't know too many tag teams that could hang with some of the guys from back in the day, with your Road Warriors or your Midnight Express, or the Horsemen.
The Rockers.
You had some really, really great tag teams back then. You just don't have that division now.
Yeah. So were you guys a WCW or a WWF guy during the war? I mean, I know, Dad, you stopped watching, so I guess this is towards Al.
I admit I was a WWF guy. I used to have other guys watch Nitro while I watched Raw to do the reviews, which is a shame because WCW a lot of times treated me better with who they'd give me to interview. And when they would come, the thing was they weren't in the Northeast too often, so I didn't get to go to a lot of the shows. But yeah, I had more friends backstage in WCW. So it makes no sense whatsoever. I'm still friends to this day with Diamond Dallas Page and a few other guys, and yet I was, I guess I just grew up a WWF fan and I stayed that way.
Okay. Steve?
Who was your favorite tag team watching wrestling as a kid?
Dad.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the Road Warriors, when they showed up, it was different. It was crazy. They just had a dark side of the ring last week with the Road Warriors, and I had no clue how bad it got. But when they first came out, it was insane. It was just like it was crazy. They were giants. They were evil, and they were definitely my favorite.
Yeah. I have to agree. I mean, there was a mystique about them aside from just that they beat everybody. But being a WWF kid, I was always partial. I probably have to say the Hart Foundation for me. I like that era when you had tag teams of two guys who were completely different from one another. You had the power guy, and you had the other guy who was either fast or technical. So, whether it was the Hart Foundation or the British Bulldogs, or, I liked when they used to do that. But, long story short, probably Hart Foundation, because you're always wondering, did they have to rely more on the power in one match, or could they get away with the speed in this match? And there was always the chance that they were going to lose. But just to sidetrack too, one of the things that's missing today that we had back then, I was just talking to my son Nick about this. You don't have really an era the way that Paul and I had, where it was the Hulk Hogan era. It was the Macho Man Savage era. You had a guy like Tito Santana hold on to the Intercontinental title for years. It was like, so when the time came that they lost, it was crazy. You're going, what did I just see? It was insane. They would define the time period. And I'll never forget being a kid, 12 years old or whatever I was, on that Saturday morning when Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, The Rock's dad, they were the tag team champs, and they lost to Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis. They lost the tag team belts, and I felt like I had witnessed history. It was like the Super Bowl. It freaked me out. Like, wait, new champions, and I saw it. I saw it right now.
It was always at Madison Square Garden. How did this happen on TV?
It was crazy. So it's like, on the one hand, you have the idea that anything can happen, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't feel as special.
Yeah.
When you see it, it's like, okay, this may you're going, oh, this is an interim guy. This might last. I was always the kid when people would go, Ric Flair, he's a 12-time champion. And I'd be going, that means he lost it 11 times. So, is it more impressive that you were a champion 15 times, but that was in 2 years? Or that you were champion twice, but that lasted 16 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's another difference between now and then. So, there.
Yeah. Antwan.
All right. So, let's see. With wrestling today, and you look at wrestling, back in the day. Now, you look at let's see.
You got
You guys, you remember like the Monday Night Wars, How you think, let's see, I can ask this. With how you look at how WCW, they was at one point the WWE's top competition, the WWF, and you look at today's wrestling landscape with WWE, and then you have AEW that's kind of stepped up to that level. Do you feel like will there ever be a promotion that will overtake the WWE, or do you guys feel like the WWE will always be that monster, that number one type?
Go for it, Dad. I think that was the question.
Today, in the near future, I don't see it. I mean, AEW definitely has the opportunity to be, there should be another possible, Monday Night Wars, if you will, but it seems to be, I don't know why they're comparing AEW to NXT, just because it's on, I guess, across from it. I mean, I don't know, but, unless something really big happens, I don't see like anyone taking on what the WWE has, going up to a public company, having their own network, basically owning all this, these libraries of material, tapes.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but who knows? 10 years, who knows what'll happen? But I don't see it personally.
Yeah. No,
no.
It's as long as McMahon is there, because if nothing else, he's a genius businessman. He's our modern day P.T. Barnum. They're too big to fail. Unless they really do something to screw themselves up, they have survived so much. And right now, if a pandemic can't take them out, I don't see anybody else doing it. But I like that AEW exists, for all the things I was saying before, because you need competition to keep people on their toes. You need a place for guys to go, even just in developing, because, back when, WWF was first forming and McMahon was cherry picking the talent from from all over the place. You had guys from Florida, you have guys from Puerto Rico, you have guys from Texas, and everyone had their own style because everyone learned from somebody different. Some people learned from Killer Kowalski. Some people, everyone. So when they got into the ring, you had different styles getting into the ring. With this generation, unfortunately, everyone's kind of training the same way with the same people. Everyone sells punches and bumps the same way. So you need territories to kind of come back, I think, to a certain degree. I don't think anyone will ever take away from WWE. Let's see what happens, after the McMahon era. If in fact Triple H and Steph take over. Right now, Dutch Mantel has been talking about McMahon talking to ESPN and Fox about buying it out. If that happens, then now it becomes a game of what the shareholders think and ratings, and the possibility of a show being canceled, which has never been a thing. When they're their own entity and they can jump from one network to another, if the network owns them and so chooses to end it, then that's that. But I will say this, and the Monday Night Wars started something, and they kind of should have pulled back on the reins when the Monday Night Wars ended. And that is what we were talking about before. When Raw and Nitro were going head-to-head, they each felt like they had to up the game with what they were presenting. So they were showing a lot of pay-per-view caliber matches that you otherwise would never have seen for free. And all of a sudden, and that's continued well past the point when we really needed to see them. And when you have 3 hours on Monday night to fill and 2 hours on Friday night to fill, and then a pay-per-view that may go 6 hours, that's a lot of stuff you got to write. That's a lot of production. And I don't know how anyone keeps up that kind of pace without, burning out the talent, whether that talent is the guys in the ring or your creative, your producers, your writers in the back. That's a lot. So at this point, I would say, they're their own worst enemy, and it's their game to lose.
Yeah. I got one more. And then I guess Steve and Antwan probably have a few more as well. Do you guys have any favorite independent promotions?
No, I'm just kidding.
Good night.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Mike, you turned me on to Creative Pro. It's really fun. They're down the road. It's owned by WWE wrestlers previously, who are now no longer, but and they seem to be, it's cool. They put on a little show in their training gym, if you will, and it's fun to watch. I know there's also, what's the one in Suffolk, Deer Park? Is that Wrestle Pro?
NYWC.
See, there you go. He knows better than I
gotta
do.
get out there eventually.
Yeah. But Creative Pro was, because you had Kurt Hawkins and Pat Buck there owning it, you'd get these guys that you go to see for a $10 or $20 show, and then, hey, WrestleMania is on, and they need security, and hey, man, the guys that we were just hanging out with, they're on TV, so it's really cool. And that's now cool. AEW has a couple of wrestlers there that are big names. MJF started there. Yep. Chris Statlander started at Creative Pro. So that's the only one I know. I know of CZW, if you will. I don't even know if that's an independent. I guess it's independent.
Yeah.
But that's mine. Definitely Creative Pro.
Yeah, for me, unfortunately, the only indie that I've gone to in the past number of years since getting back into it has been Big Time Wrestling, only because they're out here. I was able to take them and have a reunion with Tom Brandy and see some of the guys from back in the day. But like you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a comedian, so I'm on the road a lot. So I don't get to really watch or get out to some shows, but I'd certainly like to. I'd like to see some of the up and coming talent that's out there.
Yeah. Steve, if you got a last question or a few more, go for it, man.
Yeah, my last one. This one's for Al. So you see how in wrestling, it's not only the wrestlers that have to take a big stunt or a big bump, also referees, cameramen, and also interviewers. So what was your mindset like when someone told you you might have to go through something like that?
I'm gonna die. No. Let's put this one. Like I said, I got to walk through it with with Tom backstage beforehand, and I completely trusted him. He told me how to take the flat back bump. I'm not a trained guy. I don't pretend like I should have. You know, in retrospect, had you told me a week earlier that I would have been doing it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But just kind of in the spirit of the moment, and you know, doing, you know, because I didn't. My big thing when it comes to professional wrestling is I respect the hell out of these guys, and it kind of always burned me up when you had a situation like David Arquette or a celebrity walking in there and taking away, you know, giving the impression that anybody can do this. And, you know, it goes back to the whole thing of calling it fake, because that sounds like, well, this doesn't hurt. We're all making believe, you know. So it was terrifying, and I did it the one time. And that, you know, I'm lucky I took martial arts as a kid, so I probably, you know, in the moment, you know, reflex, I went back to that training. But man, it was terrifying, and you know, the ache that I had for a few weeks after that, I can't imagine guys, you know, doing this night after night after night. Any, you know, the respect that I had for them was, you know, tenfold after taking the one bump. That was crazy. So,
imagine the Dudley Boys. Whew.
Oh my God! Hey, Mae Young, ladies and gentlemen. I so love that I did it, and you know, like I told guys afterwards, it's like in no way, shape, or form should that be any indication that anybody else who is not trained should even think. You know, I'll give you even a quick anecdote with that. Back in the day, way back in the day, ECW was making a video game at Acclaim, which is a Long Island-based software company. And I was invited to watch them make the game. They were doing the motion capture stuff. The guys in those suits that were covered in the little balls, you know, when they were running around. So I went, and one of the guys who was doing all the moves for everybody was Spike Dudley. And I was sitting, and I had a great day with Spike. And there was one kid there who was a reporter for some video game magazine who was of the mindset of, this is all fake, this is all phony, you know, you guys, and just disrespecting the business and the people in the business. And so at the end of the day, the guy's like, oh, can I get a picture with one of the wrestlers? So Spike is like, yeah, all right, sure. And he went to go take a picture. He goes, oh, what if you put me in a hold? That would be great. Put me in a hold. And you just saw Spike's eyes light up. And I went, oh no, what's he thinking? He put the guy in a camel clutch. And when I tell you, he stretched this guy, the color red close to purple, that his face turned when Spike cinched it in and just gave the biggest grin as he was doing it. That was awesome. So, you know, I just have such a crazy amount of respect for the guys who do this, and like Diamond Dallas Page says, you can't fake gravity. So, man, I did it the once, and man, that's good enough for me.
Antwan, if you got a few more or a last one, go for it.
All right, I have pretty much one more question.
Yeah.
For you both. So, first I want to say, it was a pleasure meeting you both. You know, interviewing you guys. I've seen how much passion you guys have for the business. You know, watching when you're growing up. You know, one final question I have to ask is, hypothetically speaking, if you were to tomorrow, you were to get a call from Vince McMahon or Tony Khan or any wrestler promoter out and take a spot. To just have a spot in a match, a battle royal, or come call a show, come commentate a show, manage so into the ring. Like, what opportunity would you be willing to take the opportunity to do that if you were to hypothetically get that call tomorrow?
Nope.
No, you said no.
Why would they call me? Nope. No, hell no. No, I'd watch if they want to give me tickets. I'd sit in the audience, sure, but no.
Yeah. I'll tell you, yeah. If you asked me that question 20 years ago, 30-year-old me would have said, "Ooh, I got to think about that." 50-year-old me is going, I don't think so. My wife and son are both second-degree black belts in Taekwondo, and about a year ago they had Bring a Friend night, and they brought me because I'm their friend, and I'm in my brain I'm going, you're in your 20s, you can do this. This should be no. You took a power bomb in ECW arena. You can do this. I lasted about 10 minutes and I wanted to die. So to answer your question, initially I thought you were going to ask about being on the writing team. And
sure, that might be fun.
Even to that, I would have said no. Only because with McMahon, he has a reputation. He owns you. 2 o'clock in the morning, he wants to write something. You're writing at 2 o'clock in the morning. He wants you to fly out to Rhode Island today, even though it's your kid's bar mitzvah. You're going. But to be the manager idea is appealing, except for the fact that you'd eventually have to take a bump. I can't see that. Commentating, I would probably be interested in doing that, but again, that's a lot of travel. But I will say this, and it's kind of half a plug, that I am working on an animated series about the professional wrestling industry, and I can't go too much into it for legal reasons because of the point we're at, but because of that, I can kind of do all the things that you're asking, and I can be a manager, and I can be a writer and a commentator and do all the things safely from behind a desk and never have to leave. So I get to live out the dream that way. So
that's awesome.
There's that.
Yeah. So this is a part in the podcast where we let the guests ask us questions if they got any. So Dad, you got any for any of us?
Yeah, I got one for you, Mike.
Uh-oh.
Can I borrow $50?
Nice.
I don't have a 50.
No, I'll ask you. I'll ask a question, you guys. How did you guys all? How did this podcast start? How did you guys meet? What's the deal with the group, the Tuck Your Chin guys?
Oh, sure. I'll do this. Long story short.
Make it short. Yeah.
So it was like last summer. Me and my friend Will, we always wanted to do a podcast, and I was like, you know what? I have this app called iMovie, and I was like, and I have a YouTube account already, so let's just make this happen. So we just jumped right in, and it was just me and Will at the start, reviewing weeks of worth of wrestling, and then we would start getting some friends on the IWC on with us, and then eventually we had wrestlers on and a journalist on. So we came.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Wow.
The answer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We came a long way. We had Steve and Antwan as guests before, and then they were they always wanted to come on, so I was like, let's just make them members. And
there you go.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Steve and Antwan.
You guys do a good job.
Add on to that. Go for it.
I messaged Mike. I listened to the podcast. I said, I would like to be a part of an episode one day. I got on. I was completely nervous, but Mike said I killed it, and a few episodes I got back on. I really enjoyed it, and now the podcast, is grown to what it's become. These guys on here, they're even though we're all in different places in the world, we're like family, and it's just really fun, each and every time we do this podcast.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
All right, to add on to that, so Steve, how I got on was basically Steve. He told me about he was getting an opportunity to come onto the podcast and do an episode, and he then I told him then when I was telling him about he asked me something about what I like to be able to be part of the podcast one day, and I said sure. Then he messaged Mike about it, and then Mike he was open to it, and me and him messaged a bit. Then he let me be on the I think the following episode then. And when I got on, it was an amazing experience because one thing about I've always actually wanted to do one of my goals in the future. Because one of my goals I want to do is train the business, but also what I want to do afterwards is also be in a podcast or either start one. And just had the opportunity to do it, this early on, it was mind blowing. So basically it came about as as you see it to this day. I got this opportunity through Mike and Steve, and now it's like it's become a family and a really big dream of mine to live. And so it's been an amazing experience thus far.
Yeah. Al.
Very cool.
Al, if you got
That's
anything for us.
I do, but before I do, I'll just say, keep going.
Yeah.
Because you got something good here. You guys got great chemistry, and anyone tells you otherwise, don't listen to them. If there's one thing I've learned in all these years, whether it was with Scoops or with the comedy career, people will try to give you limitations based on their own talent and based on their own fears.
Yeah.
And if they're telling you that you can't do something, it's because they can't. So you guys just, whatever you feel like you want to do, if it's your passion, you just do it. Okay?
Yeah.
So my question to you guys, and this could easily run into another 11 hours if I let it. But I'll ask it this way because my son and I, we talk about this for hours and we didn't touch on it in the podcast. What is one feature that you guys would add to a brand new wrestling video game that currently they're not doing, whether it's because they haven't done it since 2K16 or because it was something that was in one of the old school games? But if you could add a feature to 2K21, which is not happening, what would that feature be?
Oh shit, I gotta think about this. So Steve or Antwan, you guys go first.
Okay.
You want to go? I'll go after you.
Antwan, you got this.
Okay. So a feature I would add, I will look into like GM mode or Road to WrestleMania, because you look at the previous games, you see that they removed. You see that long ago. Yeah, they removed what GM mode did for games, and then eventually, I guess, Universe mode took that spot. But it didn't live up. I guess for most people, it didn't live up to the limitation that GM mode gave. And then you look at my career mode, and you see that most people don't really get too attached to my career because they were so more ingrown to like what Road to WrestleMania did, And if there was a feature, I would say they should introduce, into 2K22, I suppose now.
Yeah, definitely.
I would definitely look into like Road GMO, either Road to WrestleMania, some type of thing that could be a little bit similar to what it was back then, in the old games, and kind of bring it back to this point, as long as if done right, done properly.
Right.
Maybe get some of the old game designers who helped build that, who helped make that particular mode back into the fold.
Yeah.
So that's my saying.
Very cool.
Steve, go for it, man.
Well, wait, before I answer, does it have to be like something they haven't done in years, or can I just like add anything new into it?
No, man.
Add what you want.
Sky is the limit. Whatever you think should be in there.
This is gonna be.
This is probably strange, but something like you see how Braun Strowman is always flipping something over. They should add that to the video game character Braun. Whenever he's like that,
cool.
He's like flip over a truck, flip over the ring, flip over the commentary table.
Okay.
Okay.
See, that's the cool thing with today's video games is that you can do character specific stuff, because again, back in the day with me and Paul, we have video games, there were no physics. So you have Shawn Michaels being able to body slam Andre the Giant, and you're looking at it going, that's not right. So that's cool.
Yeah. For me as a whole, I would definitely do Road to Mania. Definitely coming back. I met it was just amazing in WWE 12 and 11, and I'm not sure why they got rid of that. And they should definitely bring it back. But a small thing is for the Fiend's video game character. Randomly, lights go out. He comes in the ring. They don't do that. They do like the whole entrance. And sometimes he just shows up on WWE TV. So that would be definitely cool to see that in the video game instead of a whole 5-minute entrance.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the old brick riot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool to have a game? I mean, probably because it's my age, you guys probably wouldn't want it. You probably want player games, but you know, like like even if you could, like, you take the role of the owner, like McMahon.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, that's kind of like GM mode, Dad.
That's
GM
what mode?
It's like GM mode, something.
Oh
like that.
yeah. But yeah, all right. I don't know. See, I don't play video games anymore. On my Atari 2600, yeah, what are you talking about, dummy? That's there.
I'd like to see the game when they all wear boots. They wear boots. Oh, all right. Nice.
All right. Edit that out.
Very cool.
Forget about that. So that's it. We all do our own outro. So, Dad, I would like to see you try to do an outro. Plug your social medias.
Well, I'll be in the basement tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 2:30 working. Come down and visit. It'll be fun. No, I don't really got nothing to say. All I can say is this was really cool. I really should start listening to more podcasts, Mike.
Yeah,
no offense.
like
I just,
mine,
I know you're doing it. That's what I mean. I mean, I should listen to yours. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, I had fun. I appreciate it. And yeah,
You
that's
don't wanna
about
plug,
it.
Your Instagram or like any of that stuff, or your Twitter.
No, I don't want to plug nothing. I got nothing.
Al, go for it, man.
All right. Just like Paul, I was supposed to be headlining at Mohegan Sun this weekend, but I will not.
Me too. That's true.
I will not. Yeah. So when all this is over, come see me perform comedy somewhere. You can find me online, probably on Facebook. Al Isaacs, ISAACS. I'll have dates up and I'll have information, whether it's about the cartoon or some of my comedy projects. And other than that, man, it was really nice to walk down memory lane and talk about the old days. It seems like it seems like it's been 20 years since Scoops. And it took a pandemic for everyone to turn around and start contacting me going, hey, didn't you used to do a wrestling thing? And, so it's been very, very cool to be reminiscing about this. And, for like my family to go, wait, oh, that's right. You used to be somebody. Yeah. So thanks for that.
That's awesome.
Antwan, go for it, man.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for watching. This was a fantastic interview to do with two amazing people here to have as guests as part of this podcast. As always, tune in for the next. My name is once again Antwan, and you can follow not only just my social media at Antwan Clark Pro, but you can also follow Mike at Mike.SCHIFF and Steep at Steepstone_. So see you next time.
Steve,
Thanks
you
again.
know what time it is. Hit us with it.
Guys, you know what it is. Fastest Rising Podcast, all professional wrestling, sports, entertainment. We are the only podcast that matters. Like Antwan said, at Steepstone_, at Antwan Clark Pro, and also Dark Rebel Ant. Look up Al Isaacs, check out his comedy stuff. And Mike.SCHIFF, also Mike Shift Spam. Make sure you all give that a follow, because you know what it is. Tuck your chin, and we are out.
Oh, yeah, guys, thank you all for watching again. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Dad, for coming on. I thought that would never happen.
No problem. I can come on any night. I'm available.
Hey, Paul, we should get the band back together.
I told they have Mike has a Moshcast. He does a music podcast. I said we can do that one too.
Sure. In moshing.
Yeah, well, not really, but close enough.
Oh yeah. I'll keep going. Thank you, Al, for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Edit me out.
I'll put their social medias in the thing below. I don't know what it's called, a bio or whatever it's called.
Description.
Yes, you can follow him on Instagram, and he will not follow you back. Just before you ask, follow Antwan on Instagram. Follow Steep, and as always, guys. subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. Stay for the tweets, and don't forget to tuck your chin, guys. Peace.